This Fleet Equipment Unscripted interview is presented by Hendrickson, a leading manufacturer of heavy-duty suspension systems and components to the global commercial transportation industry. Visit hendrickson-intl.com to learn more.
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Morgan, Content Director for Fleet Equipment, and welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted. Today we're talking with Eric Johnston, consultant for OEConnection. Eric, thanks so much for taking the time to join.
I appreciate it, Jason. Glad to be here.
So we're going to dive into some aftermarket topics here and really making that parts connection for heavy-duty fleets and medium-duty fleets, even light-duty fleets, just getting those parts to the right place at the right time to get those trucks up and rolling. In the past several years, pandemic notwithstanding, even though it's changed a lot of things, right? We've seen an increase in distribution centers kind of across the country, influx of data into the service segment. What developments have you seen in that parts availability world that those have impacted?
Well, first, back in the last crisis in 2008, you saw companies really recognize that they were paying high fuel costs, for a couple of years after that change. That opened everybody's eyes. But I'd say innovations in the logistics business, not even in our industry, but across industries, has led companies to not focus on efficient operation of the warehouse. That can be done in many ways, but instead for new and unique customer offers. So, for example, you'll see companies now opening smaller warehouses, allowing pickup or allowing specialized logistics. You see companies delivering multiple times per day to dealers. And you're really making it so that, especially in an uptime industry, they can repair that vehicle in a short period of time. So, the innovations come across, but, all companies have kind of different strategies, but you see them as opening these. When I joined the business, maybe a 300,000 square foot warehouse was seen as kind of standard. This was as big as they could get, but now they're opening very small warehouses and doing more dynamic things, stocking parts differently. So a lot of the solutions that have come along really center around, a change in DC strategy, smaller vehicles making more frequent deliveries, and making a guarantee to get parts to the customer in a period of time. In an uptime industry, the purchase price of the vehicle might be exceeded by 10 or 15 times or more than that. Versus its value when it's operating. That's where the value is, and that's what's most important. So you see the world shifting and taking advantage of that.
Right, for sure. And smaller distribution centers, more delivery cycles. I'm guessing there's a lot of technology that goes in that. A lot of tracking, a lot of technology, a lot of knowing where parts need to be. How do you see technology connecting today's service center, parts distribution sections, and even the end customers to get it to where it needs to go?
Probably the single biggest thing that started happening in the industry about 10 years ago is the supply chain transparency. So this is connecting the information that the OEM has to their dealers first, and now all the way to customers. And you have customers have a view of inventory in some cases, so they can say, I can get this part, or here's how long it will take the part to get here, that kind of thing. So inventory transparency opens a ton of doors. Now all of a sudden you can find parts in multiple places. Dealers can exchange parts if they've got a vehicle coming in. And since some of these solutions have now turned into real time, especially in the very expensive, over the road trucking industry where they might have an uptime contract, you can place an order and they'll take action on that part straight away, maybe even deliver it through a ride hailing activity. And if you want to talk about, in this space, trucking, construction equipment, really are the people who are operating large fleets. They're leading this business. Automotive is way behind, still in the kind of break fix environment. So maybe. Automotive might be leading in B2C, making it easy for a customer to find a part or put an EPC so they can go look for it. A lot of the innovations that drive uptime have happened in these industries. So I think, the next thing after this is the ability to get service information out to them, especially in the case of a repair that might be for safety, and to allow vehicles to be repaired almost anywhere. So you see a lot of companies that serve fleets now will actually directly ship parts to customers at the site. Very large vehicle or a crane is not going to make it back to the dealership in order to be repaired. So some of these things are going to make it into other industries. What's really interesting is if you go look in other industries, you see these innovations happening according to the company strategies. So there's tons of innovations that are happening right now. But almost all of them are enabled by this connected, transparent world of inventory and information between the parties.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's something I'm hearing a lot more about too, in terms of, you mentioned the transparency of parts availability and even where the part is and its journey to whether it's at a fleet service location or a service location independent or dealer service location where it ends up needing to be, that being passed along to fleets as information and visibility into that service process, which to your point is something different in the commercial world, because as a B2C customer on my car, I don't care what the part is. I just need to pick my car up at the end of the day, right?
That's right.
And on the fleet side, you mentioned, they have a lot of contract maintenance and those kind of things. So, to your point, where maybe I buy something online and see which house, the delivery van is when it's coming down the street, same kind of thing is definitely coming to the fleet commercial service world, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think, for example, our industries are still really stuck in the past in some ways. Distributors and dealers have their own DMS, and the OE will have their own enterprise system. And for example, OEConnection is one of the largest providers of these type of services between the two. And so they're opening doors and making it so those barriers are broken down. The best case, the dealers. There's a lot of talk about on the auto side with Tesla distributing directly, but dealers are going to be around for a long time, especially when they've got all this knowledge and capability. But in the end, those systems require somebody in between them right now in the short term. And of course, for a fleet owner, now you've got fleet telematics, which most of the companies have started to open up their data to them. It's a necessity because they're managing a very different environment. They're managing, where's the vehicle? Can I remotely shut it down? Can I do things to that vehicle or monitor that vehicle for its service needs somewhere else without relying on the operator? Those kinds of things. So again, I see there's going to be more innovations that are coming. And it's not just going to come from the OEMs. It's great. The OEMs are always going to have the data, the most data, right? They're going to be able to see what's happening with vehicles that they've got out in service, where their failure rates are and why they fail. But meanwhile, for fleet owners, it's that search for the telematics platform not only suits them, but also gives them value, gives them opportunities to be stronger, more economical than their competitors.
Right, for sure. I mean, the aftermarket has always kind of provided that value to the fleets. The value of choice too, right? The value of choice and being able to make a choice and not be beholden to maybe one dealership or one OEM and be able to find value there. In that kind of vein, you mentioned the preventative maintenance schedules and contract maintenance. But there are all those unplanned maintenance. That's a very in-the-moment type of purchase, right? And it's still parts purchase. And in that moment, it can just feel like, well, I just need the truck back on the road right now. And, but how does working with a provider that's leveraging some of these parts connectivity and behind-the-scenes technologies bring kind of a cohesive life cycle management to the need for parts, much in the same way that fleets are looking at it as a holistic truck investment?
Yeah, so there's various stages. Let's say the very first stage is you're in a break-fix environment. You bought the vehicle, you're responsible for it. You need to arrange for service. Nobody's guaranteeing the uptime of that vehicle. That one's easy. And now in some industries, we're seeing what's called a parts availability promise. This means we guarantee the parts will be availability within 28 or 48 hours. So we certainly see that in some businesses. And ironically, this is a guarantee of what the base customer expectation is, that you'll have that part. But, as you said about your own situation, the only part that matters is the one that presents itself to you where and when you need it. So on that side, we've got companies that are using parts availability, or this parts availability promise, as a surrogate for uptime. That everybody knows what it is when they see it. In some cases, companies have strategies for the operators to actually repair the vehicles themselves. So easy repairability is part of their offer to the customer. And then from there, you're going to move into the world of lifecycle management. So, lifecycle management really means on the OEM side that you're managing the vehicle for a certain period of time. And for example, in some of these uptime industries, we're seeing the OEMs offer parts superior to the ones that came with the equipment when it was produced to increase service intervals, but also to increase the life of the vehicle. We're seeing them track parts and service events through their dealers so that they can certify that vehicle as factory certified for its entire life cycle, as an example. And then from there, you move on to opportunities for people who are guaranteeing uptime. Maybe they include a rental operation, but they're really managing the telematics situation to direct the events that need to happen. So I believe that on the fleet side of the business, that the telematics providers will probably advance some of those things. They'll never have the perfect information from the OEMs, but the OEMs have shown an ability to work with them, to give them data, to help satisfy these owner operators. And of course, if you're a major fleet operator, you're an important customer to the OEM. So some of the innovations are going to come from that side of the business, and it's also going to come from third parties who are also in this business. Because TCO is a nice way to say, hey, don't look at the price of the part, look at the price to operate the vehicle. Yep. Well, after let's call it the truck or equipment's first life, not only is there a second life, but the same type of contracts and opportunities will permeate that space, and a lot of that will be driven through third parties rather than directly through the OEM. And one interesting thing is on the part side, if you see that OEMs still on the automotive OEM side have not started selling aftermarket parts, branded parts through their networks. But you definitely see it in uptime industries, and that's there because, frankly, the OEM wants them to be loyal to their supply chain. They want a piece, they want to cut of the action. But now you're going to see, I think, aftermarket across industries become more important, and that's going to be because the vehicles are going to continue to have value to some owner operators different than the first owner.
Yeah, for sure. And two quick things there that just kind of caught my attention. One, again, the continual need for the ability to integrate that data, right? If I'm a fleet or owner operator or even a small fleet, and the telematics can put all my vehicles all on the same kind of path and same kind of level, right? Yeah. That then I can use that data to improve the service process. And we've seen numerous examples of different integrations between OEMs and third-party suppliers. That is something fleets definitely want to look at. The other thing I thought was really interesting that you said was the parts availability guarantee, right? Which if I'm buying the equipment, that's not a super fun thing to think of right off the bat. Because it's like, well, I just bought the truck. I don't want to have to think about the parts, but I know I'm going to need parts. To your point, we have a plethora of data that points to which parts we may typically need, right? And something you said a little earlier just seemed to connect in that same idea of the value comes from the part when it's back on the truck and it's running, right? That's where you're getting your value out of it, right? So anything that streamlines that point and gets there that faster, there is value to be had there. That shouldn't be overlooked, even though it might not be a super fun thing to think about, right, when you're buying the truck or the contract.
Yeah, you talked about telematics. For example, in the small construction industry, you've got companies that will open their OEM platforms so you can use it on. Now, those won't be as effective, won't have as many sensors, as much integration as some. But, they're doing it because, same reason for parts availability promise. It's a reason to buy. So, I guess we've all had negative experiences when going to dealerships or because the parts weren't there or you had to wait. We all just went through the pandemic, right? So this happened to everybody in all kinds of industries. So, right, you don't want them to think of that, but what you do want to think about is that availability is guaranteed. So, for example, you get industries where they'll keep a cabinet at a fleet owner's place, and they'll have consignment parts there. They'll have a way to track them, and they'll guarantee the availability of those parts because they'll be replenished as they're sold. And if you're a fleet owner who is doing their own maintenance and light repairs, in some cases, these companies are even offering direct technical service to fleet owners. Right. Not as much in trucking, but in these other industries. Yeah. And this is one of these things where, again, you're not only satisfying that owner, but if you're a large fleet, you're going to want to perform some of the maintenance by yourselves. And if you can perform if your equipment doesn't have to go down or move away from your operation and be repaired when it's not supposed to be working, these are all things that are valued to the customer. Right. And you're right. You're right. Nobody wants to talk about it, but this happens across all business, right? Everybody's talking about service contracts and these kind of promises. So I think I believe it's a reason for some people to buy or switch. It's a reassurance, and especially today in the world where you've got a big increase in the amount of smaller vehicles. Right. The European style 3 lengths, 3 heights white vans that you see Amazon and all these other companies driving. You see people like Mack and Volvo going back into the medium truck business, along with Isuzu and Hino, who are customers of OEC, as an example, and Navistar. You see a big change where some people are going to choose other brands because there's a product there that they can't get from one manufacturer. And so these points of integration, these offers that make them bring down the barriers to changing brands, these are things that are important to OEMs.
Right. For sure. Eric, so great talking with you today. I learned a ton. I appreciate you taking the time.
All right, great. Jason, great to talk to you. Thanks very much.